for a state, for a country the size of Israel. So again, I speak to Mr. Mishra's colleague and I asked him, how much would that translate into India's defense industry? If supposedly we had a market capable of exporting $1 billion worth of arms, how many jobs could you create? What would be the impact on the local economy? So he says, oh, it's very simple, just add another zero to it. So you're talking of 4 lakh high-tech jobs. And unfortunately, because we are importing, we are so import dependent on Russia and France and Great Britain and the United States, we are actually exporting high-tech jobs to those countries. We are subsidizing, we are actually creating jobs in those countries where we should actually be creating it in states like Kerala or Gujarat or Maharashtra or wherever. And here is the opportunity now. We've had this, this thought has always been there that we must have an indigenous defense industry. It's always been the goal, stated goal, 100% make in India in defense and all. For the first time, but we have the government that's actually pushing from the very top. You have the DIPP, it's one of the 20 key sectors that have been identified for indigenization in defense. We plan to get to about 70% indigenization over the next a decade or so, which is very, very ambitious. I hope we can make it. The other aspect is that there is this huge opportunity, this $250 billion spent in aerospace and defense. That's a huge opportunity for the DPSUs, the public sectors, enterprises, and the private sector and the MSMEs. And I want to quickly come to Kerala's contributions to India's defense. It is much more than film stars and politicians. Let's just look at the map, what Kerala has offered to the defense industry. If you see there, it's Trivandrum down there. Not very far from here is the hub of the BrahMos Aerospace, which makes a very, very competent cruise missile called the BrahMos. It's an Indo-Russian cruise missile, very, very potent, very capable. It's used by the Army, it's used by the Navy, and now the Air Force is going to get it. You have assured orders for the next 10, 20 years. So this missile is here to stay. BrahMos has got a very large production line here, and they're here for the next decade, 2 decades or so. So Kerala is a hub for cruise missile production. Then if you go further north, you have the aircraft building facility at Cochin Shipyard. As you all know, the INS Vikrant is being built there. It's the largest warship to be built in an Indian shipyard. It's a very, very huge capability. The second aircraft carrier also will be built in Cochin Shipyard, and this is going to be bigger than the INS Vikrant. It's going to be 65,000 tons. It's possibly the largest warship to be made in an Asian shipyard. That's another huge opportunity. And there's another facility in Cochin which we are very proud of, which is called the NPOL. It's a DRDO laboratory which manufactures sonars that fit in submarines and warships. A series of sonars called the Hamsa and the Hamvad and the Payal. This is one area in which India is completely self-sufficient. It's a very, very rare success story in the defense sector where we are so heavily dependent on imports. We have this laboratory that's entirely, made us stand on our own feet. And of course, you have to the north, you have the proposed defense industrial park in Palakkad, which is going to start. I'm sure the land acquisition is underway, and I'm sure things will start off very soon. And what does Kerala offer other than this? One is, of course, the climate. I was just telling my father-in-law that I haven't seen this kind of blue sky here after 2 weeks in Delhi. We've just been seeing grey. We have wonderful blue skies, and I'm told that this is the best environment to make electronics. It's completely clean and dust-free, ideal for making electronics. Human resources. Mr. Srinivasan spoke yesterday of his thousands of engineers working for him in his bank. So that's a huge opportunity that you have for a very highly skilled, trained, educated, English-speaking workforce. And of course you have connectivity. Only state with 4 airports and now the Adani port. Very, very big opportunity for making in India in defense in Kerala. However, there are other states as well. Kerala is sadly not the only one which is a claimant to this defense pie. This Make in India defense has triggered off a huge race among all the different states. Now you have states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, Goa, Telangana, even Andhra Pradesh. These states have pumped in huge, huge resources into attracting Make in India in defense. They've set up massive infrastructures. They've set up defense industrial parks. They're attracting big investments because they're not constrained by real estate and other factors that Kerala is. So where can Kerala actually score over the other states? I mean, you're looking at the Goliaths who are there for obvious, a lot of them are there for political reasons as well. Goa, for instance, has become the hub for Aero India, which is our premier defense aerospace show, and Def Expo, which is your premier armed forces, army and navy show. Both of them, they were usually held in Bangalore and Delhi. Now, for political reasons, I suspect they've been moved to Goa. So how does Kerala compete against these Goliaths? So, I mean, Goliaths is that story of Goliath, if you've heard, the David and the Goliath story. I think Kerala should be David. You know, we're smaller, so you should be nimbler, you should be quicker, you should think on your feet, and you should actually invest in our primary resource, which is the human resources, our human capital, our engineers, our startup guys, our young entrepreneurs. We should actually promote them. We should get them to open up in this park that you have planned in Palakkad, because that is a key area that we can actually score over the other states. And I was in Israel a few years ago, and I was astonished to see the kind of startup culture that they've developed there. And Israel, as you know, is called the startup nation. It's the startup capital of the world. 63 of their companies, Israeli companies, are registered on the NASDAQ. It's the highest for a state of that size. And Israel is also a country, as you all know, it's almost created by weapons. It's surrounded by hostile countries on all sides. It's huge investment in R&D and huge capital is pumped into these startups. And you have simple ideas, simple, wonderful ideas which are immediately funded by the government. Anyone can go with an idea, show it to the government, and the government is going to facilitate your idea. Like, there's a simple example of an Israeli soldier who had this idea for a gun that can fire around corners. It's called the corner shot. And he was funded by the government a few years back, and today he's got a proprietary technology which he's exporting all over the world, including to India. The National Security Guards uses that. Wonderful little examples like that. Across sectors. Defense is, of course, one area which is very critical for them, because their survival depends on the defense industry. And we are huge, we're a huge market for Israel because of this particular reason, because they specialize in cutting-edge electronics. They know that they're a small country, they don't have the luxury of, say, the United States or France or countries which have real estate, which have large workforces. So they specialize in this cutting-edge electronics, the upgrade of tanks. So you will have a lot of Indian, we are large importers of Russian hardware. So you will have Indian fighter aircraft, Russian, very big, but they'll have the cutting-edge Israeli electronics. You'll have a huge Russian helicopter, but it'll have cutting-edge Israeli electronics. Warships, cutting-edge Israeli electronics, radars, missiles, stuff like that. So that is an area I feel that Kerala can really be competitive in against the other states. And here is quickly some points that the government can actually do. In addition to the startups that I mentioned, one is, of course, that you create a competency map. What are the key areas that Kerala can be very competitive in with regards to the defense sector, and how you can actually score in those niche areas. Like, one area I know is that Kerala has traditionally been a very large producer of rubber, and our expertise lies in that. And one of the very top projects of the Navy was to coat their submarines with these special rubber tiles, anechoic tiles, which we used to import from overseas. Now there's this company, I'm told, in Kerala which is specialized in that rubber tile making, and which now supplies tiles for all of the Navy's submarines. So that's a very key area that we've been able to score in. And of course the others is offer tax breaks and single window clearance. My panelists have spoken at length on that. These are very important if you are to attract sizable numbers of investment into the state. And in the 70s we had this phenomenon of the Gulf boom, and that continues to define us. We've got millions of Malayalis working in the Gulf and sending remittances back home. So my point is that defense industry, Make in India in defense, has the potential for being the next big boom. If we can all work towards it, I'm sure we can make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep, for bringing a totally new perspective to manufacturing, the defense perspective. Thank you. So here we are, and as I said, this is the time for interaction. What we could do is kindly introduce yourself briefly, just the name and maybe the organization, and you can either make a point or ask a question. If you're asking a question and if you want that question to be answered by any particular member of the panel, you can name them. Thank you. It's open now.
Should I get up or sit down and speak? What's the right? My name is Gopi Gopalakrishnan. I'm a defense expert, and I'm also a senior defense and I in San Diego, US. I belong to Trivandrum. I keep coming and going. Recently, we had interaction with the defense minister and also the PMOs and also other concerned people about Make in India. And our company is $1.3 billion company. They want to make it in a big way. When they met their PM in Madison Square, then we came back. We are into interacting on the first week of January. Very well brought out points by you. I have a very few points to add on and also to negate some of the issues. Firstly, the point of Chinese products is very valid. Now the major aspect of Make in India is to reroute all the Chinese manufacturing equipment to India and pass it on to SMEs and MSMEs so that we have a great potential in India, and the availability of spares are very, very essential, as you said, and it's available. The next generation warfare is totally different than what we are visualized so far. It's called NCW. That is a net-centric warfare. Mostly belongs to networks, which controls various navigation elements and also missiles, satellites. All this is controlled by networks. So NCW is a separate topic by itself. India, we have Bharat Electronics, Bharat Forge, and other companies which are very much competing for the complete defense products. Now, coming back to the Kerala perspective of Make in India, how defense can apply, I have three issues. I only can say that Kerala can benefit defense-oriented issues on a software engineer basis, because that can be clubbed into the IT park, techno park, where the malicious unions and others don't take over and inhibit the manufacturing processes. So manufacturing aspect in Make in India of defense products contributes only to 20-25% and not 80%. It's mostly software oriented, and we are trying to bring it. The first suggestion we had was to put it in Goa, where Defense Expo is going to start in March 2016. Second was in Noida area, where they are able to give us
please make a point, and
Yeah.
you know, please do not go for a parallel presentation because we don't have the time for it.
I agree with you.
Please.
Sorry about that. My question is, will Kerala ever be successful in manufacturing? Should an ecology sensitive, densely populated land-scarce Kerala focus on manufacturing at all? That's my question, number one. Number two question is, will the Kerala afford the space, time and the area for clearances, various and bulk manpower for the Make in India? Or is it a virtual reality as far as Kerala is concerned?
So I don't think Kerala can ever be a very large hub for manufacture. I mean, that you have to give the other states like Maharashtra, Andhra, which have no shortage of land, which don't have as enlightened, I should say. I mean, it's a good thing to have an enlightened population, but you cannot have a polluting industry in Kerala, for instance. There will be tremendous local opposition. So I don't see Kerala, unfortunately, being a huge hub for manufacture, but network-centric warfare operations, those kind of SMEs, MSMEs, huge potential for that in techno parks in Kerala. I think I see that as the future for Kerala and not manufacture. I mean, of course, you will have the aircraft carriers and you will have the cruise missiles, but I don't see this. I don't see another facility for another warship building yard coming up in Kerala, for instance. Land is at a premium in Kerala. I mean, it's just a sliver of land, you know. So space is a constraint. So I think the only way that Kerala can really be competitive is into electronics and making those net-centric warfare, you know, options, software-driven options, which is the future of warfare, really. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. I'm Chitra from Pondicherry University. I have a hypothetical question and towards the Anantharam, SBI person. Sir, it's a hypothetical question. That is, I'm an NRI. I spent 15 years in Middle East. And I didn't find any good investment in Kerala. That is, I have three options. One, that is bank investment, FDs restricted. Gold I can buy whatever amount I want, and houses I can make any. But these are all investments. I need something, because especially I saw Vizhinjam project is very good project, and we need to invest more on the infrastructure, especially roads, rail and airports. Then only Vizhinjam is a cost-effective project. I want to invest in the infrastructure development of this state. Every year I gave nearly 1 lakh crore to this state. Nothing is happening. So I want to know my small earnings, my small money, how much I can invest for the infrastructure development of this state. Do you have any good policies for me which gives me good returns? Because I'm not interested in shares.
Yeah, thank you. I am from State Bank of Travancore. Of course, we belong to the State Bank group. Very interesting question, but you know that leads me to quote the example of the Cochin International Airport, which is, I believe, the first ever PPP model of infrastructure development in the airports sector. Individuals like you were made to participate as equity or shareholders in the company, and the company has been, it is not a listed company, it came out recently with a rights issue, but the book value of the share is much higher than the net worth value of the share is much higher than the book value at which people are holding those shares. So the answer to your question, that if you are looking for opportunities for investment in the infrastructure sector in Kerala, I would say that, as Mr. Mahapatra put it, entrepreneurs should first come forward with viable projects with some contribution of capital from their side, and then maybe seek private participation from individuals like you, from NRIs, and then banks will fund. And given the administrative ability to implement these projects in time, there are, I think, potentially viable investment opportunities in Kerala. I am not sure whether I have answered your question fully. In short, to sum up, it is that if there is a viable investment opportunity available, number one, if there is an entrepreneur who comes forward with the idea to invest in that project, number two. Number three, he also has some amount of capital, say 15, 20%, 25% of the required capital, and then makes an offer for 70, 75% to be, invested by people like you with small, sums of money. Then, it makes the way forward for that investment project to be viable, because capital will come in, debt will also come in, and then it is a question of implementation of the project, like this 1000-day milestone, which I liked very much. So these are things which are possible, and then that will provide opportunities for investment for NRIs like you. I see possibilities there. So it is a question of when these 3-4 components will come together. Who will make it make it come together? Cochin International Airport, it happened. So we are waiting for some kind of leadership initiative like that. Incal, Kerala, I'm sure that with Balakrishnan sir's initiative, they have taken up projects like this. Probably this is an idea, maybe SPV model, where individuals can also invest small sums of money, is something which can be thought of. Thank you.
Can I ask you, has the government of Kerala ever thought of a infrastructure development bond targeting the NRKs, non-resident Keralas, that they could invest in such a bond or something?
You see, Kerala government had already issued, way back in the 99-2000, we had issued infrastructure bond, fully subscribed, fully repaid also. Currently, as Mr. Adhikeshan said, there are different projects in the infrastructure sector which are kind of private sector led companies. First example is Cochin International Airport. The second one is Kannur International Airport. The third one is Incal. All these are government-promoted private companies seeking investment from the NRIs and others also, but investing into infrastructure. Yes, even currently the government of Kerala is again looking at floating infrastructure bonds, and they will be coming out with that. I heard this is, I'm not the right person to answer about that, but what I heard from my friends and colleagues in government is, yes, they are planning another round of infrastructure bonds. High-speed rail, we haven't yet decided about the financing options because we have very good options available. For example, look at, we started this project first. We are far ahead of the rest of India. We prepared the DFR and DPR is almost ready. We have surveyed that. We could have gone ahead, but we lacked the political consensus, so we couldn't go ahead. Now look what Japan is offering. Hopefully tomorrow or day after it will be signed. 0.5% interest to be repayable in 50 years. So this is what we were telling in Kerala. In 40 years, according to the project report that we have prepared, in 40 years, we will repay the entire loan. So here they are offering a 50-year. As Mr. Adhikeshwan said, you know, these are infrastructure projects that will take much longer. A house maybe you can repay in 25 years. A good projects, there are perpetual bonds now coming, you know, even 99 years. It can 30 years, they will reissue it again 2-3 times. It will go for 99 years. Therefore, it is the long-term finance that has created by way of infrastructure bond that has created infrastructure. The first one, let's take the example of United States, which now is the richest country, but the entire railway system, what they call the railroads in US, were funded by bonds subscribed by Europeans, but availed by the Americans to create a larger network of railway funds. So again, infrastructure bond is an option, and Kerala government hopefully will be coming with that soon. So it's not directly connected with your question, more to Mr. Mahapatra's question. Thank you.
Hello, sir. My name is Ayyappa Das. I'm from State Bank of Travancore. 10 years back, the whole narrative of manufacturing was centered around special economic zones. Now we don't hear much about the whole concept, and we see they are losing sheen. Do you see the new impetus on Make in India focused on certain parks, or it will have a wider narrative to it? That is a general question to the panel. Second question is specifically to Mr. Sandeep. I did my college in Cochin. Now there is a particular very sensitive defense facility there called Naval Armaments Depot. Now when I was studying, there was a hotel coming up some 3-4 kilometers outside this particular facility, and suddenly after a particular point they gave a stop memo to them that they should stop construction. So do you think major defense establishment will hinder the other infrastructure facilities that are coming around it because of the security concerns associated with it? Thank you.
Let me try to answer your first question. Yes, the special economic zones were created because it was then thought the plethora of legal the hurdles that we have created ourselves in India are too difficult to overcome. Therefore, let us create special areas where most of this will not be applicable exactly, and there will be freedom. Honestly, that didn't work out the way they have envisaged. Most of these laws have come there also. But the positive side is, since then, we have liberalized in most of these sectors. As you heard, so there's hardly much difference except some tax benefit, of importing things and all that. Hardly much difference between special economic zone and an ordinary manufacturing facility that we are creating now. If you are again, the concept of special economic zone was that, look, you make something there and you export the whole thing. So as long as you are not entering the country, you will be given exemption from all the laws and regulations so that you send it out and all that. Again, that didn't work. Infrastructure, the regulatory issues, foreign exchange issues hasn't worked out. Let's accept the fact the special economic zones in India, if you compare with China, we haven't done well at all. And doesn't matter, because if you make the whole country an open place for investment in manufacturing and export, it doesn't really matter whether you need special zones or not. I'll pass it on to Sandeep to answer to the other question.
In answer to your question, I said that earlier also, I don't see Kerala being the hub for very large industries, especially labor-intensive defense industries, and land is one of the major problems associated there. And in Cochin particularly, there's this huge debate in government right now because the second aircraft carrier that the Navy wants is 65,000 tons. I mean, it's really huge. I mean, it's the size of a super tanker. Whether they can actually make that in Cochin, because the Mattancherry Channel, as you know, is not wide enough, it's not deep enough to accommodate a ship of that size. But the Cochin shipyard wants it to be built there. I believe there is plans to build another dry dock or something in Cochin itself. So that will actually decide whether, that project can actually come up there on the available land. So I only see existing, resources like the facility, the Keltec facility in Trivandrum, which was taken over by BrahMos and made into one thing. So existing facilities can be upgraded into defense, manufacturing hubs, but I don't see new greenfield projects coming up on the scale that they used to in the past.
The other question regarding the security, well, I don't subscribe to that. Today, with satellites and all that, you can get exact photos of 1 square meter, very perfect, clear pictures for anywhere. So we are still obsessed with the old system that, if you come anywhere near me, you are going to spy. You don't have to have that a building to spy, or take photographs and all that. I think we need to, again, as you said, ease of doing business, many of these restrictions have to be changed. For example, there was a case registered in Kerala. You know what was the case? Somebody made a map of this Vallanad village. That was the case. Well, technically speaking, there's some ancient act created by Britishers during, World War II or World War I that, if anybody is seen making a map, probably it is presumed it is for spying. So that law is still there, somewhere there. So using that, the police registered a case against somebody for creating a map of Vallanad village. Now, what on earth is going on in Vallanad for some foreigners to make a map? I don't understand. So those things are still there. That's what we need to do. I mean, again, a very important point. There are some countries which puts an expiry date on all legislation. If you don't renew that legislation, this legislation expires in 10 years, 20 years, 25 years. We don't have that system. I would strongly say that all legislation in India should have an automatic provision of expiry unless it is otherwise renewed. Otherwise, you will still have the very old act. Nobody uses, nobody reads that, nobody ever knows about it. But if somebody wants to fix somebody, somebody will find that. This is the only purpose of those acts. Still, some people are keeping that is that when the right time comes, if I need to fix you, I will take out this book. Yeah, something about SEZ.
On the SEZ, I want to say something. One, don't take away my job. I am looking after an SEZ. But why it didn't succeed, we also did an analysis because we are promoting this month itself, Gopalpur SEZ in Orissa is expected to be notified. And we are going to do a market launch in January. Whereas the timing was wrong. You can't have only part of the house decorated as a fantastic place when rest of the house remains as it were. Under Make in India, one of the great things is in a very comprehensive manner, everything has been looked at. All the rules, regulations, ease of doing business, FDI, labor reforms, you name it and it is there. So when such a big changes happened around it, and then you have the flexibility of a DTA and SEZ together under one industry park. You can't have 3,000 acres dedicated to 100% units exporting. You must have a flexibility. 50% of that should be geared towards DTA, 50% should be geared towards export, and there has to be export zone and that. And also there has to be real estate. In China, the SEZ came for developing townships. But in India, we thought, no, the 2006 Act says that you have to have township which can house only the people who work in the SEZ. Nobody else can stay there. If you have a school, only the children of the employees who work in the SEZ will study. Now, who will build a school? So that's not possible. So now the flexibilities have come, and you need to assume that when you have an SEZ, when you have a DTA, we also use the opportunity to develop a township, and then the entire growth model starts. I think today, in the Make in India context, there is a probability of SEZ becoming a success again.
Yeah, I think we can take one more question, please. Okay, then I will add one more point about SEZ. You know, sometime back, when somebody asked whether India can be like China, Lee Kuan Yew said, you know, the late Prime Minister of Singapore, he said,